Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. This is episode 211, where I interview Minnesota three-gunner Nathan Payne. This podcast is brought to you by Breda USA, Italian shotguns that are the best in the world. And this is a shotgun tech tip from Team Breda. Hey, this is Dave Hartman from the Three Gun Show, and I'm with Tina Martin-Nims from Team Breda, and we are going to learn about choke selection.
So before you go out to the match, you want to make sure that you have an understanding of how what your chokes are patterned at. So what I like to do is I have my three main chokes that I usually use, which is a spreader, an IC, an improved cylinder, and a mod. And I set my targets out at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. And it's just like a knockover steel and a flipper. And I test to see what how they perform at those distances with the ammo that I typically use. And so when I go out onto a stage, I already know that at, say, 35 yards, I can use my mod choke and knock it out, and I'll be ready to go.
Awesome. All right, well, that's your tech tip from Tina Martin-Nims of Team Breda. Check out Breda's B12i 3-gun ready inertia-driven shotgun at bredausa.com. That's BREDA. Thank you for joining me here on the Three Gun Show, the world's largest three-gun podcast. Let me ask you a question. Do you like three-gun? Do you like shooting? Do you like matches? Do you like running and gunning? You think you might want to shoot a match? Then this is the place for you. Every single Wednesday, there is a new episode waiting for you to download, listen to, and learn how to become a better practical shooter. So be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, etc. We're on everything. And tell a friend. Like, just take a screen cap right now of the podcast player and text it to a shooting buddy. Like, just do it right now. I'll wait. Help spread the word. Some things I've been up to lately in the Three Gun Show world. Last episode, Bryan Ray and I were talking run and gun gear setup. So that has inspired me to get my personal gear squared away for the Big Ben Blast and Dash presented by Vortex Optics. This is the first year for this little match that we're holding here in Colorado, October 13th. And we have been fortunate enough to partner with a great charity in Shield 616 that will benefit from this match. Plus, we have some incredibly generous sponsors that are sending us cool gear for the prize table. The aforementioned Vortex Optics has sent us 1 cubic yard worth of great prizes that we're going to put out there for some lucky winners. And LAG Tactical has sent us a whole box of mag pouches. So several lucky racers are going to walk away with faster reloads automatically after this. You still have time to sign up and train, and there's a link in the show notes at threegunshow.com/episode 211. If you're interested, check it out. It's going to be a good time. The weekend before the Blast and Dash, I'll be shooting the Red October Kalashnikov Championship in St. George, Utah. If you're a listener to the show, as you probably have heard before, I've partnered with IWI to shoot the match with their Galil Ace and bring great content to you. I'm in the middle of filming an install series for several great parts to make this one fun open gun and definitely a rifle worthy of a three-gunner, I guess. So it'll be a good time. Something I'm not really used to, working with AKs, and it's been a bunch of fun so far. So be sure to subscribe to the Three Gun Show YouTube channel so you can see that video right when it comes out. And speaking of YouTube, this interview was recorded on YouTube. I'm recording them all on YouTube now. So the recording schedule is not really set, so you might want to turn on notifications there on YouTube just to make sure that you are notified whenever we go live. And I'll try to give you as much notice as possible. Now on to this week's show. I'm excited to have Minnesota shooter Nathan Payne on the podcast. I've shot with Nathan quite a bit before, and he's a really cool dude. He's a great guy to talk to and hang out with after the match as well. I caught Nathan right after the Jeff Kirkwell Memorial match, which he won, by the way. And I told him, hey, man, we need to get you on the show. And I'm so glad I did. This is a really great conversation. Nathan has a really unique perspective on the game. He came in late compared to the rest of his family, and his brother Tyler, his younger brother Tyler, and his father Bryan had already made a significant impact on the sport. We talk about the pressure of living up to the family name, how his approach to gear and planning is much different than that of his three-gun BFF, Jake Latola, who's also been on the show several times, and what Nathan is doing to improve and grow in the shooting sports. There's a lot to learn in this one, so enjoy this interview with Nathan Payne. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and with me today is Nathan Payne. Nathan, good morning. How you doing, man?
Good morning, man. Thanks for having me. Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm trying to catch up on sleep here after being at TriggerCon for a week now. So you can probably hear the grumbling in my voice. I think I lost it on the first day of range day and kind of trying to been recovering ever since.
Sure, yeah. It looked like you guys were having a lot of fun. And you got to hang out with that Vortex crew. They were a ton of fun. So.
Yeah, they're a bunch of good people, and TriggerCon was pretty interesting. As far as trade shows go, it's now my favorite, man. Just the overall experience and the companies that were there were fantastic. So highly recommend.
Great. And where was that again?
As Bellevue, Washington, which is it's probably like 30 minutes northeast of Seattle.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, nice and hot, 90 degrees when we were there. No rain or anything.
Really?
Yeah, it felt like Minnesota.
No rain in Washington?
Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah, it felt like the last time I was in Minnesota. It was just hot as heck there and a little bit humid. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. You expect to go to the Pacific Northwest and be covered in rain and stuff like that, but nope, none of it.
Huh. Well, they see the sun too, I guess.
Yeah, every once in a while, for a couple weeks at a time, they get to see the sun. So, Nathan, we're here to talk about you, man. I'm pumped to have you on the show. You're just coming off a win at the Jeff Kirkwold Memorial match, which is a 5-stage match with a shoot-off, and you ended up on the top of the heat. So, congratulations.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, I love that match. It's as much for its purpose, right? As you well know, it's a memorial to someone that was a member of the three-gun community here in Minnesota, which, as you know, is a very tight-knit community.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's great that he will continue to be a part of that community because of the match. And Adam and Ruben and now Travis getting involved, and they did a great job of the proceeds for Task Force Dagger, which is awesome. I love TFD. Basically, since I started shooting three-gun, they have been a part of it. So to be able to shoot that match every year, it's great, and to be able to come out on top, it's just icing on the cake. So
that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun, and you did great too, shooting shoot-offs and all that stuff. It's a whole different game, isn't it?
Yeah. The shoot-off it's a ton of fun. And so you can probably talk about this as well, but for me, like when you're hearing someone else, cracking off rounds next to you, it really makes you hustle and kind of gets in your head. And I've interviewed, so many people in the shoot-off, and in the early parts of the show is like, kind of switching that format of the Three Gun Nation Pro Series, but they were still doing the shoot-off. And so I've heard like quite a bit of advice from guys over the years of, focus, stay on your array, stay in your game, always finish your arrays, right? Just in case the other guy screws up or something. We definitely saw that in the shoot-off in the 4x4 open or 2x4 open division. But yeah, man, it's something else, and it's a pretty sweet adrenaline rush, and you're breathing hard at the end, and like you only move like 5 paces, so you can't blame it on the running,
Yeah, it's not cardio.
yeah, exactly. It's pretty much just holding your breath and letting the nerves take over for 30 seconds, right?
Right. Yeah, you're right. It's tough to remain focused when you got that other rifle, shotgun, pistol all banging right next to you. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, Nathan, let's back her up a little bit, and let's talk about you and introduce you to the audience. So, who's Nathan Payne when he's not shooting? What do you do when you're off the range?
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm a father of two and a husband of one. I've got two beautiful children, and I've got a 5-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old baby boy, and
Nice.
a wife that supports the habit, right?
Yeah.
The obsession, whatever you want to call it. And then I work in law enforcement for the federal government, and when I'm not doing all that and I'm not shooting, I enjoy hunting, and actually working on planning a trip out west here, hopefully next year. So
Oh, no kidding.
to Wyoming, where you're going to be headed in a week, right? Next week, so.
2 days actually.
2
I'll
days.
be in
Oh,
Wyoming.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, the match is next weekend, right?
Yeah. The match is over the weekend. I think I'll be there like Thursday or something like that. But so hunting, is that something that you've done for a long time?
Yep. I mean, of course, grew up shooting squirrels and raccoons and woodchucks and everything else. But then when I think in Minnesota, it's 12 years old, you can go deer hunting, and basically hunted whitetails ever since then. And when I get to go down to Georgia for the Fort Benning match, Tyler takes me out to do a little bit down there too. So
Yeah, Tyler's your brother, Tyler Payne. Does a lot of night shooting, right? So does he take you out in the dark and bust some varmints?
Oh man, yeah, it's one of those things too where, so he takes me out there, and then I get home and I start researching thermals. So I'm afraid he might end up costing me some money.
Yeah, I got to play with some thermals at TriggerCon, and man, it's so weird, like looking through those things and watching like what leaves a thermal trace and everything. And I was surprised at how much heat is left by a footprint. Now, is that something that makes it easier to track an animal in the dark?
I probably, when you're walking through the woods, there's so many things that give off different heat signatures. So it's hard to, for me anyway, I'm a novice. So, but yeah, it's crazy. You'll be standing there, you bring up the thermal, and there's something right there in front of you. You lower it and you can't see anything.
Oh, that's true.
It's pretty cool.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. Or walking through the woods with looking through the night vision, you pull it down and trip over everything.
Oh yeah.
You can't see without it.
Yeah, the only night vision that I've done as far as like night shooting, I should take that back. So the first time I did night vision and night shooting, it was the one, I don't remember which eye I was on. It was probably the left eye, right? It's like the one eye has the night vision part, and then the other eye has your reticle, right?
Right.
Like that was a trip, and literally and figuratively, like you're tripping over rocks and sticks and shit like that when you're trying to, navigate, because the depth of vision is completely off. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I think I did that a little bit once. I came away with such a bad headache.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can keep doing this. So.
Yeah, we went to the mountains in Colorado, so it was like super dark, and we were doing a night shoot. And the other cool thing about night vision is like when you look up, it draws in all that light, so you see like all these stars out there that you can't see with the naked eye. It's just like really incredible.
Yeah, that's something that Tyler showed me for the first time down there, and I couldn't believe it. Yeah, it's that kind of technology is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. Technology in general, man, it's cool. And when it's applied to your hobby, that's what I really like to see.
Right. Yeah. And of course the military has their uses for it, and those applications are interesting as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you always see like the trickle down for the consumer market,
Yep.
And I was talking. So one of the guys I was talking, total sidetrack here, but one of the guys I was talking to at TriggerCon, he was saying that the explosion in the hog hunting the hog population, has exploded in hog hunting, and now opening it up to night and helicopters and things like that. He said that they can't even keep thermals on the shelves.
Yeah. It's what I've been hearing. And like I said, I come back from Georgia and I start doing my research. thermal. And yeah, I mean, you get onto the Facebook. There's I think there's a night vision and thermal page on there, and discussion page, and all. Hey, I just got a couple in if anybody's interested, and so yeah, everybody's looking for the next best thing, right? Which is not at all like 3-gun.
No. Yeah, 3-gun, it's buy once, never buy again, and no arms race whatsoever.
Yep. There's only one compensator. It's the greatest one ever.
Yeah,
right?
I have that one.
Right, exactly. See, yep. We all shoot the same rifle, shotgun, pistol too.
Yeah, of course. For new listeners, we're being facetious, and
Right.
there's there, and that's a good point. Nathan, like in 3-gun, we constantly seem to be changing stuff, trying new things like that. Where I look at guys in USPSA, and they've been shooting the same pistol for like 15 years.
Right. Yeah. I think it's good, and it can be a trap. Right.
Yeah.
I think it can be a trap in, my brother Tyler, as he's in the Army Marksmanship Unit, very accomplished shooter in both 3-gun and PRS. And one of the things he always talks about is don't chase the new shiny, right? Spend your time and your money on getting better, making yourself better, right?
Right.
But we get hung up on equipment, right? And I think that's one of the things. First of all, you need it, right? You need some equipment in order to compete, and so you try to find the best that you can for your budget, and then your budget changes or your goals change and things change, and so your equipment changes, right? And it evolves and along with you as a shooter. But I think it's good in that it keeps our industry running, and we kind of are a bit of a test bed, right?
Yeah.
And we do vet a lot of things out. Good friend of mine and yours, Josh Freilich, tests things out, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's gonna find out what works and at what level it doesn't work anymore. So
yeah, exactly. Like if it has a usable life of 2 years and X thousand rounds, he will reach that in like 6 months. So
right, exactly, or less.
Yeah, or less. Yeah,
set a goal. He'll do it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thought. I like to say that actually I think I stole this from I believe either Dylan Easley or Jesse Tischhauser. I can't remember, maybe both, but they called 3-gunner super consumers. And if you have acquaintances or friends that are USPSA shooters and 3-gun shooters, the 3-gun shooters, to me, in my small sample size, seem to be the people that want to shoot a lot, want to shoot many different things, and want to try new things out. Whereas I find like the high-level USPSA shooters never want to change because they don't, want to introduce any sort of differentiation in what they're doing, where we seem to have like a lot more play or slop in what we're doing.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. The thing that I've found is I kind of ride that line. You see something new, but I tend to be, well, what I have is I've spent the time and the money to get the best that I can, right?
Yeah.
So it can't be better than that. So I find that I need convincing sometimes, which I suppose is good and bad. But you're right as far as the variables and things like that. The shooters that are very dedicated to USPSA, it can be tough for them to wrap their mind around all the things that we do in 3-gun.
Right.
I just shot a PCC for the first time, trying that out, and I just did that this last weekend. And I'm walking through these stages, and this is a memory stage and all this stuff, and I'm like, you shoot 32 rounds. And I don't have to find a place to dump my gun. I was looking at it like, yeah, okay, I get it that it's a memory stage, but it's just two different ways of looking. I'm sure you sat in art class when you're in high school, and for me, what they did is they put something in the middle of the table, and everybody sat around the table with the light at a certain angle, and you drew what you saw. Well, it was the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. The item was the same thing, but everyone's picture was different depending on where you sat. Right?
Yeah,
it's just two ways to look at that apple or whatever it might be. USPSA, you look at it and you're very focused on what you do. And in 3-gun, it's harder to keep that kind of a laser focus because we do so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have 3 tools to solve the job or to, And they've got one, right? So,
right. Well, and then it's not just those 3 tools. It's all the stuff that goes with it. Right. I mean, you don't just buy a shotgun, you got to buy caddies. Right. And then you got to figure out what ammo on what targets, right? Shotgun. I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole just on the shotgun alone.
Oh, for sure.
And then you got the rifle and then you got to pick an optic, right? And a division, or if you're like Freilich, you got to pick 6 optics, for your rifle. So, and that gets expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I'm expecting him to put a magnifier on his 45 degree Dominate pretty soon.
For those long slug shots.
Yeah.
Long leaning slug shots. There's going to be one shot throughout the year, so I need to train for this.
Right. Nah, of course, Josh, I'm kidding. Love you.
I'm not kidding. I'm serious.
Yeah.
So
if it works,
what was that?
If it works, he'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing, Nathan, I think people chase a lot of times for gear is when they start, and I'll take myself for example instead of keep saying they. So when I started, I went from a Mossberg 500 pump, with 6-round capacity, right, and a 18.5-inch shotgun, and I went to like a Mossberg 930, and one of the first ones where they actually worked really well. And that completely changed my game. So now I've got this taste of like, upgrading your gear gives you this much more enjoyment, and if you're listening to the podcast, just imagine me with my hands in the air. And when I went from like my, kind of M4 clone or forgery kind of thing to a nice precision barrel with a nice expensive comp and a really nice trigger, I got that much more enjoyment out of the game because it was much better. So now you kind of have in your head, like, look, I can buy goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. You can buy an achievement.
Yeah, exactly.
And you bring up a very good point, and I agree with you 100% that there is a level, right?
Yeah.
There are things that you need in each platform in order to reach your greatest potential with that gun. In a rifle, take for example that first mil spec trigger that may have come with it. Now they don't even, a lot of these manufacturers, you don't even get that, right? You get maybe an aftermarket trigger that comes with it, or they do their competition trigger in it, and that makes a huge difference. You and I both know that, a great trigger in a rifle can make or break the whole platform.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with a pistol, so there are certain aspects of each firearm that are necessary in my opinion, but now it's to the point where all these companies are offering that, you can choose between 10 different rifle triggers that are going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they're all going to be awesome. They're just a different type of awesome. Might not be better or worse, just different. And whichever you get to pick, whichever one fits you. It really is a great time to be a competition shooter because you have so many things available to you that probably weren't 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think of it like whenever I think it's the truth about guns, and there a couple other people have done it too, like the muzzle brake test that they do. They put pressure sensors on things and measure recoil and stuff like that. And they usually take like 30 breaks and then come up with a winner. But if you look at like the difference, like you said, from the acceptable good to the best, like you're talking like fractions, as you get up there. So it's like, what is better, like a Porsche 911 Turbo, a Corvette ZR1, or a Mustang GT500. It's like all those have over 600 horsepower, and are going to be super stinking fast and and outdrive you. So it's like just what's your poison at that point?
Right. And for me, it's whichever one starts every time I turn the key. Right. I was in that gear race too. Tune that gas block down and make sure that the comp is the best comp you can put on there. Ultralight, whatever you can buffer system, to make it so that this thing doesn't move. And then, 500 rounds in, the gas tube carbons up, and now you're short stroking. And, I actually got it from the AMU guys, Tyler and Dan and those guys. And, I talked to Tyler about it, and he's like, I'm to the point now where, a muzzle brake makes a difference. It does, or a flash hider or whatever it is. But put a brake on it, give me a full mass carrier or whatever, and I just want to make sure it goes bang when I pull the trigger, right? And I'll mitigate the rest with technique.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten to the point where, like, I don't tune my gas block unless, I don't tune it down, I should say. If I have to open it up, I will. But other than that, I load it up and shoot it because, I want to make sure that my stuff runs. I will take reliability over a little bit better, I don't even know if you'd call it performance, but flat shooting rifle. I'll take that reliability over that. I'm at that point now, so.
Yeah, same here. And, I personally have not had gas block problems, as far as like tuning it down a lot, but I was super conservative when I did tune my gas block, like I didn't go like on the ragged edge and like, do an eighth of a turn. Okay, there, now it's locking back and leave it there,
Sure.
Because we shoot in so many different conditions and pressures change and things like that. So I probably tuned it on the heavy side, as far as like recoil goes, but, never had an issue. I hate that when people never had a problem. But so far I've not seen any sort of issues in that in putting a few thousand rounds down it. So.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point there as far as the different elements and stuff that we shoot in and how all that stuff can affect it too. So, no, I think it's a good idea to make sure that your stuff runs.
Yeah.
So, put that in the advice column, right? Make sure your guns run.
Yeah. We were talking before we got started on the podcast while I was getting all the stuff together because, I was gone for a week and not everything digitally was where I left it. Everything was physically here, but had a little bit of stalling to do. But we were talking about preparation, and with all the traveling that I've been doing and other things that go along with the show that people don't understand, like this box, Nathan, you can see this right here.
Yep.
That's my razor that I'm going to be shooting in the next match.
Oh, yeah. Better get that thing mounted up.
Yeah,
quick.
buddy. Guess what I'm doing when we're done?
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that I would do right there.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah. For example, this PCC that I'm shooting now, because I'll be shooting in the Lucas Oil PCC Championship. So I decided, I should probably shoot a match. And before the match, I put about 150 rounds through it, and 50 of those were by my daughter. So
nice.
But it runs, and but that's kind of how I would be, mount it up, get it zeroed, maybe get a little bit of dope, and hey, go run it. It's funny because Jake Latola and I are good friends, and his approach is not mine.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's very scientific in the way he goes about things, and we go back and forth about that kind of stuff all the time. And he shakes. He's telling me, yeah, I zero my rifle before every major, right? Check the zero and all that. And I was like, oh wow, okay. And this was last year. And he goes, it was before Benning last year. And he goes, well, when's the last time you zeroed your rifle? And I was like, March. So, just two different ways to go about it,
Yeah, for sure. I've been shooting the UH-1, which is my excuse for not being prepared here. The Huey for those in the know, but previous to that, I had a Viper on my rifle, and just like you, man, I sighted that thing in when I put it on the rifle, and other than just like confirming zero at each match, right, which never required a change from me,
yep,
I didn't bother.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Huey. That's actually what I'm running on my PCC too.
Is it?
That's a great optic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let's take another rabbit trail here. So I'm going to be running one of those on a PCC as well. So what do you think of that?
I love it.
Do you?
Because I zero mine at 25 yards. Well, with a PCC, you're shooting a lot of these 4-inch steel plates at 7 to 10 yards, right? So you've got a holdover. And what I noticed is that with a dot, there's just space. But with that Huey, I put the bottom of the circle, that little triangle that's at the bottom of the circle, on the target, and at 10 yards, it's, 7 to 10 yards is dead on. So I still have a reticle on the target at close range, and I like it. Plus, it's got a big field of view, and it's rugged, very rugged. So,
yeah. I like using that.
It's a great optic.
I like using that giant circle to be like really sloppy on stuff.
That's what I do with my Spitfire AR. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you're traditionally a limited shooter. Why did you choose to shoot in limited over TAC Ops, which is where most people seem to either start or end up?
Yep, it's a good question. So I started in TAC Ops and I shot TAC Ops. So I started back in 2012 for real. And then other than taking basically 2014 off, I've shot TAC Ops all the way up to 2016. And what happened was the 2015 Jeff Kirkwall Memorial match, I actually won a Spitfire AR off the prize table. And
nice.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm going to put this on a rifle and I'll try it. I've never shot anything but TAC Ops, so I'll try this because I had it. And the first match I shot it at was the 2016 Fort Benning match. And because I talked to Tyler and they didn't have any targets out past 200 yards and I had no time to train long range. So I was like, well, I'll get a good zero and go out there and shoot it and have fun. And I did. And I was like, well, okay, let's try it at some of these other matches. And it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
This, it really is a different feeling when you get a hit call on a target that is smaller than your dot,
Yeah, for sure. So I started shooting limited when I started shooting 3-gun just because my old rifle, I bought like a used name point because at the time optics were like freaking expensive. So I had that on there. The dot was like so big, it was inappropriate for the game. And it had a little bit of a flare to it that I always thought was my eyeball, but I've since seen other optics and it doesn't have that in there. But when I switch to TAC, now you've got like all this fidelity to play with, and you can put it on the one MRAD, 1.1, 1.2, whatever you want to do. Right. And it's really fine. But when you switch back to a limited, you're like, now I'm just going to hover it over the target. And I could be hovering 6 inches. I could be hovering 10 inches. It's really hard to see when you're at 1X. And like you said, when you get that hit call, it's like, yes.
Right. Yeah, I did it right. Okay.
I know. Holy shit, that worked.
Right. You feel like you really accomplished something there. I will tell you that it was intimidating going to Rocky Mountain with that thing last year, but
I bet.
I had a ton of fun. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tell me about that experience. So are you like a dialer or a holder, or how do you shoot limited?
I'm simple, Dave, so I'm gonna hold it.
Yeah.
I hold off into space if I have to. It's one of the things that I like about running an 18-inch rifle, though. I get a lot more velocity than those shorter barrels, and so and especially up at elevation. Like I just looked at the governor's match you're going to next weekend. I think you're at 6,000 feet there, so you're only like 600 feet lower than Rocky Mountain. So it shoots flatter. I noticed that my rifle shot flatter at Rocky Mountain than it does here at like 900 feet elevation down here in Minnesota.
Right.
And with that 18-inch barrel, there was only a couple targets that I didn't have a dot somewhere on the target. So I find that for me it's faster and easier to just hold into space if I need to, and just learn that and train the dope. Get my dope and know my rifle optic and ammo. So
that's good. I kind of played around with that a little bit in practice on a Spitfire because I shot the UH-1 in the Colorado Championships. It was only 350 yards, but in a practice session, we were messing around with 10-inch plates at 4, 5, and 600 yards. And yeah, And with the UH1, you're able to because it's a 1 MOA dot, right? So you're able to hold like above it and still see the target. But I found with the Spitfire and the 3 MOA dot that on a 10-inch plate, it would completely cover the thing and I couldn't see it if you dialed. So I found that holding for me, even though you're not holding on the target, you're, kind of trying to make a figure eight or something like that. That was actually much better for me.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. It's crazy though when you bring that dot up and the target's smaller.
Yeah.
And I look at Street Lock all the time. I'm like, is that really how big that's gonna look?
I did the exact same thing, and I found like Street Lock is like, well, I guess. I mean, I don't even know what to do with this. If you're shooting like BC zones at that difference, then then you're kind of thinking like, oh, you just hold, the top of the target and then hopefully it drops somewhere in there.
Right. Yeah. It's not good when you look at Street Lock and it actually sends a message that says good luck.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, okay. So
you're using the wrong optic for this target.
Yeah. Your application does not work.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But we do goofy stuff like that in 3-gun though.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just to prove that we can or what. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right. So let's take another step back. You said you started in 2012 shooting 3-gun seriously. So your father's Bryan Payne. He's been on the show before. So folks that want to look at that, just go to 3gunshow.com, search Bryan Payne, and it's a really cool interview because we got a lot of background on Minnesota 3-gun and just kind of 3-gun in general. It was a really cool conversation. So you grow up in a 3-gun household and you don't really start shooting until 2012?
Yeah.
So what's going on with that?
Well, my dad didn't start shooting it until I was in college.
Oh, okay.
And actually, no, I would have been out of college, but he took my brother Tyler and myself to our first match in 2005, and it's actually where we met. I met for the first time John Paul Gang, JP Enterprises, right?
Yeah.
And he took us. John basically took our whole squad and walked us through how to shoot every stage. It was a big hand holding experience, and my brother and I shared. Borrowed 870 Glock 34 and an M14, I believe. That's what we shot, Nice. And they had a stage, and poor Tyler, he's gonna hate me for this, but they had a stage where it was all slugs. It must have been like 15, 16 slugs, and of course we didn't know anything about low recoil, so you get whatever they got at Fleet Farm, and it it probably would have taken a deer clean off its feet, and so we're loading this thing up and shooting this 870, which of course didn't fit Tyler. I'm out of college at this point. I don't know, 22. I don't know. I'd have to do the math, but Tyler was probably 15, and Tyler was, we'll call him slight of build, and that shotgun just beat him up so bad. And we got done later, and he's like, Nathan, is your shoulder sore? I'm like, yeah, a little. And he's like, he pulls his sleeve up and it's already turning black and blue. And I'm like, that's pretty rough. You're gonna feel that tomorrow. But that was basically the first experience, and I had other things going on where competition wise that were taking up my time and my focus, and so I kind of went away. But Dad and Tyler stuck with it, and as far as Tyler's concerned, you see where he went with it. Mm-hmm. And my dad started to make a name for himself and stuff like that. And then in late 2011, early 2012, my dad invited me to a 3-gun match. And I was like, at this point in time, I was done competing in the other things that I was competing in. And I'll give it a try. And it was a cold slap in the face. It does not feel good when you come from a competitive athletic background and you go to a match and you've got, 65-year-old men who literally sit on a chair in between stages and they just smash you at this match, and you're like, it's frustrating. And I'm sure you dealt with some of that yourself.
Oh, hell yeah.
coming in.
A lot of people I think deal with that, and for some people I think that it either intimidates them or their ego can't handle it and they don't come back.
Yep.
Do you find that
I agree 100%. That I think there's a lot of people that they think that it's somehow a skill, right? It's a God-given skill to be able to shoot three gun. And you and I both know, and the more that I shoot, the more that I realize it's not. It's these people who are good at it have trained it. There is some natural ability involved, especially as the stages get to be more athletic, like you're going to run into down at Rocky Mountain and stuff like that. There is some natural ability that's involved there, but overall it's hard work and training and focus and dedication, all these things, that are buzzwords that come into play and really make the difference. But for me, it was tough because of the name on the back of the jersey there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was on me. I put it on myself, right? My dad and Tyler both, they raised the name up, and people knew who they were when we'd go to matches. Just at the Kirkwald match, some guy came up and called me Bryan. I have 3 things on the front of my jersey. It is JP Enterprises, ORM Tech, and Nathan. And he walks up to me and calls me Bryan every match. I get that, and it just shows you that they've really done a great job, and it's something that I try to live up to. Every time that I go to a match, every time that I'm on the range training or doing dry fire in my basement, whatever I do. And so it was humbling when I first got in, and I put a lot of probably undue pressure on myself because of that. Mm-hmm. And it was all on me at fault there. But once I realized that the only expectations on me were mine, it changed things. And I also realized that being a part of the community was really what was the most important to me. You've been up here, you're pretty much becoming a part of the Minnesota 3-gun community yourself.
It's nice.
And it's a very special group, and then go around the country and there's so many great people that I run into and see, and it's like you've said many times, it's like running into friends that you've got friends everywhere now, and they're all part of my community, my people. And I'm honored and humbled to be a part of it. Travel, I've shot Blakely, Georgia, down at was Legion. Now this year, I can't remember. They had the 3-Gun Nation regional there. Back in 2013, Task Force Dagger down there, and all the way to Rocky Mountain and Missouri, of course, has match all over the place. And so getting in 2012 opened a door that I didn't see probably at that point in time, but I'm so thankful for it. So.
Yeah. So that's a cool story, and thank you for sharing that. The familial part of it, you always kind of try to, live up to the expectations that your family has placed on a community, right? Like my big brother, he's 2 years older than me, and he's super smart guy, super athletic guy. So I always followed him behind in school 2 years later, right? So there was a lot of educational expectations that were placed upon me by teachers and things like that. And my brother's also a quiet guy, and he used to be, I guess, a little bit more quiet now, or back in the day. So I've kind of got a smart mouth. I don't know if you noticed, I talk for a living. And so a lot of the things I said, I took probably more heat for it because it was just such a juxtaposition from like my brother, Right. So, but there was that pressure on it. So, but I think, like you said, a lot of that pressure was self-induced. So do you still deal with that pressure? Have you found a way to overcome it or mitigate it, or, and if so, like, how did you deal with it?
Well, that's a good question. So what I found out is that everybody looks in this community, everybody, in my experience, everybody looks at everybody as an individual. And so I just decided that I'm not gonna let it affect me negatively. Do I still let it affect me? Absolutely, but it's only in a positive manner, right? I use it as fuel, to train harder, to train smarter. I ask question. I'm still I'm learning all the time, and I am not afraid. For those who don't know, Tyler's my younger brother. So,
Yeah.
so it's the same thing as you, Dave, except the other way around, right?
It's almost worse, man.
It's way worse. That was a big pill to, it was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But putting my pride aside and realizing that he has a lot to offer me as well as everybody else, I ask a lot of questions, and I'm proud to be a part of that family, and I feel like I've become my own person within it as well. And I'm out. And no longer am I just Tyler's brother and Bryan's son. I'm very proud to be both of those, but I am also my own person in this sport, in this community, and that's kind of what I decided was I'm just going to have fun and just be here for the reason that I should be here, and that is to come out and have fun, enjoy myself, and enjoy being around these great people. So
yeah, that's a cool thing, and I definitely find that as well in this community, that you definitely are an individual. There's not, I don't think people treat, I guess, families or groups like with the same expectations. It just, like you said, they take it on an individual basis, and that's one of the really great things about this community.
Oh yeah, just one of the many.
Yeah, right.
The many great things. It's such a special group of people, and some of the best people I know.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 2012, when you decided to take Three Gun seriously, what was the why? First of all, why did you decide to take Three Gun seriously? And then what is the what was like the path that you took? Did you set out like a plan, or did you just jump right in and try to fly, or what?
That's a great question. So the reason that I started shooting Three Gun to begin with was to spend time with my dad. It was a great way for me to connect with him and have that common ground. But as far as really taking it seriously and what I was doing, I didn't really have a path. Basically, I talked to my dad probably every day. What should I do for this? What should I do for that? And it was getting my equipment. You could probably remember back to when you first got your first, your pistol, your rifle, your shotgun, and your belt and all that stuff set up. And he was such a huge help in all that. And he still is. I don't know if you saw the video, but the competition rifle I'm running this year, he built it.
That's so cool.
And for those of you who don't know, he is a gun builder at JP Enterprises. And but so I had such a huge advantage coming into this sport. I talk about it like it was tough to live up to the name, but to be honest, I mean, how many people wouldn't want to have Bryan and Tyler Payne as family members that they can pick their brain literally any time of day? I mean, there's no greater advantage than that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was so I wasn't about to just leave that alone, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wasn't afraid to dial either one of them and take their time, and I still do it all the time. I'm sure it's wearing thin.
Yeah, it's not the "Hey mom, how you doing?" It's like, "Hey mom, I got a question for dad."
Right. Yeah, can you put him on the phone? Tell him I'm not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, dad's out milking the cows. We don't have cows.
Yep.
Well, I guess the progression from then to now, it's only a few years. Getting to like a proficiency in Three Gun is not hard, but getting to a level where you can excel and play with the big dogs is a little bit more difficult. So what did that progression look like for you? Did you?
Yeah.
What's your practice look like, and what's the match schedule looking like?
Yeah. Okay. So what I found out is my background in competition is not conducive to Three Gun.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, I played college football,
right,
and then like Josh Freilich, I did some MMA. Not at the level that he did. I wasn't professional or anything like that, but that was what I did for competition. And basically, it was head to head, right? I mean, in football, it's you against the person across from you. You got to beat them.
Yeah.
Whatever they do, you got to beat them. And the same thing in martial arts and all that stuff. But what I found out is that in 3-gun, I would watch somebody shoot a stage in front of me and they would just crush that stage. Well, now I got to beat them, right?
Right.
And you know how that works. So,
I do know how that works.
so it was a trial by fire for a long time for me to realize that I needed to round myself out as a competitor, and I needed to realize that this is not like those sports, and there are aspects, that I can take from those sports to add to my own skill set. But the mental aspect of 3-gun is what took the longest time for me. And I realized that for me, I'm there I got to remember when I'm not shooting, right, which is what we spend most of our time doing,
right.
shooting, that I'm there to have fun. But then I have a certain amount of time before, if I'm in the hole, that I shut that off and I get my focus up, right? So I've got my plan in my head and I'm running through that and I'm visualizing, and then it's time to shoot. And I will tell you that as soon as that buzzer sounds, that beep, like I reach almost like I'm, oh, thank God. Okay, now we can just shoot. All the prior stuff is over. Now it's just me shooting targets, and it's me against the stage. And then when I'm done, I put my guns away and grab my gloves and start resetting and having fun again. And it took a while to learn that, because for a while there, I thought I had to be focused all the time, and it burned me out.
Yeah.
And so I've got my own method now, and it works real well for me.
So I can totally relate to that, being too focused. And I've had several friends, just like, you're not being fun anymore, where it's like you want so hard to do well that you're like focusing on the outcome rather than the process. And I think that doing so misses out on a very large part of this game, which, like you said, is the community, the camaraderie, etc. So my question is, how do you switch your focus from being a good squad member, picking up targets, pasting targets, and, joking around and making fun of Jake Latola to like, okay, now we're in the hole and it's go time?
Well, first of all, making fun of Jake Latola never stops. But so what I found out from me is it's when I hear that I'm in the hole. So then it's time to focus in on. So beforehand, walk the stage. When you got your walkthrough, get your stage plan in your head, and then once I hear that I'm in the hole, then that's where my focus goes, is to shooting that stage and visualizing what my sights are going to look like on every target, footwork, reloads, indexes, all that stuff. Focus on that. And that actually, what I find raises the anxiety a little bit and probably gets the adrenaline up. And that's why when I hear that beep, it's almost like, oh, finally,
Yeah.
finally I can just do it. I don't have to think about it. And then when I'm done with that, then I don't have to think about anything other than having fun. Right?
Yeah.
And what I find is that I have more fun shooting as well, right? Because I'm not thinking about, oh man, I screwed that up. I focused so hard on it, I screwed it up, and I did this wrong and that wrong. I'm able to compartmentalize things a lot better, and good and bad. So I mean, you got to be able to put the good stages away too, because I've done that before where I carried that over and kind of like, oh, I got this, and no, I did not. I did not have it. So it's been a long process, a learning process, but I feel that it has been very beneficial to me as far as just as a person and rounding me out as a competitor, and I've learned a lot about myself through that process. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the learning about yourself is huge. I've learned so much from 3-gun, like how I plan, how I prepare for things. And, there's that whole saying, like, how you do one thing is how you do anything. And I find that I fly by the seat of my pants quite a bit. And I do that in 3-gun too, unfortunately. But then there's the you learn about yourself and how you plan, how you strategize, how you best prepare for things, how you execute, how you deal with like adrenaline, how you deal with, mental problems, or I guess puzzles to solve. There's so much learning that goes along with the game, and it's hugely valuable as development to yourself on a personal level.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you had some great points there. And what I found is that, like you said, a lot of it translates into life, right? And things that maybe would have been stressful to me otherwise, I don't find as stressful, or I have a better way of dealing with that stress, right? And I focus on the things that I need to focus on, and I tend to let the other things probably not bother me as much as they otherwise would have. But yeah, I think you made some really good points there, and I agree with you 100% as far as as you progress in the sport, it does translate to a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, and I've noticed that in like other sports that I've done, like obstacle racing was a huge one. When you go out and run a half marathon with 30 obstacles, and you're covered in mud and climbing walls and ropes and shit like that. Like the weird, awkward meetings at the office on Monday don't really matter that much.
Yeah. Well, what I just heard is that you did some really crazy stuff for fun.
Yeah. just to
great.
see if you could, like how much you can actually push yourself. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I did that for a long time, and I was doing that simultaneously with 3-gun, and found that like I wasn't really doing well at either, and so now I'm focusing on 3-gun and finding like I'm still not doing very well at 3-gun. So 3-gun is just a bigger problem to solve.
I don't know about that, but I can tell you that as someone who has listened to pretty much every episode of the 3-gun show, I appreciate you focusing on 3-gun. So.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. So the thing that I really like, and a lot of my athletic pursuits and hobbies have had in common, is like an adrenaline rush of going fast, of maybe like a little bit of danger involved as well. But not like super danger. Like once I go rock climbing, like that's okay. Now I've reached my limit. That's too much for me. Like the exposure, I don't really like that much, but running with guns and going as fast as possible for me creates like a physiological response where, at the end my hands are shaking, I'm excited, like, where am I? That kind of thing. Yep. From football, you're taking huge impacts. It's man on man. It's like the basic, gladiator in the arena type thing. MMA being the same way. Do you get like that kind of rush from 3-gun?
I wouldn't say it's the same. No. What I've found is that I do a better job of dealing with the stress that 3-gun produces, or induces, I should say. But as far as like football and MMA, football is even a little bit different. I always tell people football is not a contact sport; it's a collision sport, and you got to have your, we say it all the time. You got to have your head on a swivel, right? I mean, it hurts a lot for a long time. A long time. I tell people that I'm 36 years old with 56-year-old joints. So, it beats on you. So.
Well, that's very common. And we're starting to see a lot of that in, in research that's being done on the NFL. People are diving a lot deeper than they had in the past, and finding that it does affect you that much more. So, on the outside, from someone who doesn't have the context, like we appear to be, dangerous and off the reservation, running around with guns and things like that. But it's probably a longer lifetime in this sport than you can in many others.
Oh, without a doubt. And not just a longer lifetime, but a longer time to actually be relevant as a competitor. Look at Jerry Michlik.
Yeah. I
mean, is Jerry an anomaly? Probably. But does he illustrate the point? Absolutely. That you don't, 3-gun is something, and you've mentioned it in the past, actually, that it can be a lifelong sport, much like golf. And so that's one of the things that I enjoy about it, is that I don't have to, I could go to work on Monday after a major match, there's no way that I'm going to work after playing a football game on Sunday or Monday or Saturday, but I did take a lot away from football, and a lot to do with the way that I prepare myself and my body for three gun. And, but the competitive aspect is definitely different, and I can appreciate it, with the stage that I'm at in my life, that, it's something that I can do all the time. I can enjoy it all the time. I can do it probably for the rest of my life. So,
yeah, that's one thing I really like about it as well. There's a lot of longevity in the sport, where
yep.
in football, you have, a team, you got a coach, you got a dude telling you when to be there, where to be, and, when to practice. And if you don't show up for those practices, you're off the team, right? Or in three gun, it's totally up to the individual. You can practice as little or as much as possible. So what does your personal practice look like? Did you take anything away from, your past athletic performance or venues to apply it to your current sport?
Yeah, I'd say that I did. The mostly in my physical preparation, physical training is a big part of my life, as far as just everyday life, work, family, all that stuff. I have my reasons outside of three gun for training, but what I like is that I can take aspects of like, especially football, the footwork stuff. I'll do footwork ladders and plyos and stuff. I did a short video on Instagram on some of the things that I'll do in order to help with the explosive movements that we have in three gun and basically all action shooting sports. And it's not just, a lot of people focus on exploding out of a position, right? Taking off and sprinting as fast as you can. But it's also about maintaining body control and coming into a position as fast as you can while under control, and being able to change direction quickly and things like that. So, all of that stuff we trained all the time in college. There was no off season. Like, when I say all the time, I mean all the time. 4 years straight. We couldn't wait for the season to start so we could take some time off. But it's one of those things that I apply to three gun prep for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I saw that video. It's pretty awesome. One of the things I noticed is you have a really long stride. You're a tall guy, but I was like, whoa, that was a big step.
Yeah. That's not always a good thing. Some of these tight little positions, just from window to window, that can be a little bit more difficult. But I was kind of born a sprinter, I guess, is the best way I could say it. So that was something that we trained to. Get to top end, you need to lengthen out your stride a little bit. But it has to do with another thing that I focus on is trying to stay flexible. And this, we get into some crazy positions in three gun, and I think it's beneficial to maintain flexibility as well. Yeah.
So as far as like drills you run and stuff like that, do you do any weightlifting at this point, or is it pretty much just movement and like you said, body control?
Yeah, I do weightlifting. I train weights as well as so I've got that resistance training, and then I also do gymnastics rings, which I learned from a couple of friends, colleagues of mine, taught me how to do some of that stuff. So it's a lot of isometric holds, and works a lot of the stabilizing muscles and things like that. I couldn't believe how much stronger it made me. I saw what these guys were doing. One of the guys did 36 pull-ups in a set, like strict pull-ups. Wow. Okay. Dang. Whatever I've been doing, I'm going to throw my stuff away. Teach me, So, and in about the course of a summer, I went from 15 to 24, not lifting anything.
Is that on the rings?
On the rings. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. It was crazy. So, but it's one of those things if you're not careful, it can be as hurtful as beneficial, So, but it's another tool that I put in the toolbox that I can go to when I need to.
Yeah, rings help, with grip strength as well.
Yes, big time. And I wish I'd have been doing it back when I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because, man,
Yeah.
you grab a gi and they'd never get your hand off of it. So
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and grip strength is something we use all the time in three gun. Gripping the rifle, pistol is very important.
Yep. So yeah, I find that it's applicable all the way around. So, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just read a comment from Jake Latola. He quoted you. "I do weights." Haha.
I do weights. Yep.
Well, do you constantly change up your routine, or is it something that you've decided like, oh, this is what I do and it works well for me?
Yes and no. So I have kind of a program, right? A formula.
Mm-hmm.
And then within that program, I will change the different exercises or whatever it is that I'm doing that. So like maybe Tuesday would be, a back day. And so maybe instead of doing pull-ups and rows and things like that, I might do a gymnastics ring routine to work those muscles. Or a bit of both, dabble back and forth, a lot of circuit training, things like that. So yes, I do change it up, but the program for the most part stays, the basic outline of the program stays the same.
Mm-hmm. And are you comfortable sharing that basic outline of the program?
Sure. So basically, I do cardio at the end of every workout, but it's never anything really more than 20 minutes. And within that, it's a lot of interval stuff. It's not just, I'm not just going to sit on a stationary bike and pedal for 20 minutes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll do that sometimes if I need to work out some lactic acid or something like that. But so Monday would be, I usually do supporting muscle groups. So Monday would be like a chest, tricep, and I do core all the time. And then so I plug my exercises into that program, and it'll vary because I give my muscles usually about 48 hours to recuperate before I hit them again. And which is one of the things that I found out through CrossFit is it doesn't work for me. It causes more injury than anything for me. So my program is more like, because in CrossFit you tend to work the same muscle groups a lot,
yep.
Right? And so it didn't give my body enough time to recover before I hit it again. And so so I break it up. Basically, I'll hit all the muscle groups in the first 3 days, and then I'll go through it again, and then I'll change the exercises to in the second time through. So I'm hitting them at a different angle or in a different way, or I might, instead of doing heavy sets, I might go lighter with higher reps, or do a Tabata type training or something like that, just to change it up a little bit.
Got it. So when you say you give your body 48 hours rest, it's not like sitting on the couch and eating Cheetos. It's like working something different.
Right, exactly. So I break up the muscle groups. So, like, let's say that Monday is chest and triceps. I won't hit them again until Thursday, because then Tuesday and Wednesday, I'll hit 2 other sets of muscle groups. And so each muscle group then gets staggered.
Right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So just a method that I found that it works pretty well for me. And it keeps me from getting injured for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still do stupid stuff. But,
same.
Yeah. Right. Well, you test yourself, right?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Hey, I wonder if I can do this. And you don't win, because even if you do it, you hurt yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah,
that pride gets in the way sometimes.
It totally does. It's been the the best and worst thing to happen to men for centuries. So
yeah. You're absolutely right. I agree.
All right, we got your formula then for gym workouts. So what kind of workouts do you do on the range? How often are you doing live fire versus dry fire or anything?
Okay. Well, I didn't really do live fire training until last year. Other than that, it was all dry fire, and I was doing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a mix of both. I do dry fire probably 3 to 4 days a week, and then I'll do live fire usually about once a week. And it's it's all fundamentals. The live fire is all fundamentals. And I try to break it up so that my in dry fire, I'll work a lot of weapon transitions and a lot of, like that's where I'll do my shotgun reloads and stuff like that. Cause I can do that anywhere, right? I run up and down the stairs in my basement and do, silly, my wife just laughs at me, but, but it works. And so I work on certain things like that. And then in live fire, that's where I'm working on, the sight alignment, the trigger press, and target transitions and things like that. And then I like the live fire training for position entries and things like that as well. And of course, offhand rifle, because that is one of those skills that I think can set you apart. Is your ability to be strong and to be able to count on your offhand rifle. And I think it translates also. I feel like if I can shoot a skinny Sammy offhand at 100 yards, it doesn't intimidate me when I see it in a match, right? So I try to do the things that I try to train above what I'll probably see in a match, so that I don't get up to a stage and like, oh, geez, I don't know if I can do that. I've never had that happen. Where I got to a stage and I'm like, I don't think I can hit that target.
Yeah, and as far as the offhand rifle goes, I found like a lot of match directors try to make stages attainable for lower shooters, right? So they'll give them like a something to brace off of, but then you have to run to that, and they'll put it out of the way, so it adds extra time. Whereas, like if you can take it from a more advantageous position offhand, it'll save you a ton of time. Yeah,
I was humbled greatly by the great Jerry Mitchlick at the 2016 Fort Benning match.
Yeah.
I was shooting on his squad, and we had this stage where you came out of the back of this trailer, and there's a bunch of like tank traps all over the place, but you couldn't use them to rest aim. And they had these Colt speed plates or skinny Sammies, I can't remember, at about 75 yards in these steel bunkers. There were 6 of them. And everybody ran over to the dump box, reverse kneel off the dump box and try to hit them. But there was like a dump barrel where you had to kind of move a little bit or you're going to burn through that, and which I did, of course. And it was bad. It went ugly. But everybody did it, and everybody was doing this. And there were some people shot it really well. Jerry gets up there, runs over to that spot, not to the dump box, but to a different spot, just stands there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and runs over and dumps his rifle and takes off. And afterwards he goes, sometimes you just got to stand there on your hind legs and shoot them like a man. Oh, thanks for the salt in the wound, Jerry.
Yeah.
But it was a lesson learned. Like I said, I'm always learning. And it was one of those where, you know what, I need to train it to the point where that is an option for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm not looking for an out, so, because that's what it was, right? I mean, you go to that dump box, which took longer and was a worse position, but it was an easier position to hit those targets. It was an out.
Yeah.
So, and Jerry proved that it wasn't worth it.
As he frequently does.
Yes, he does. I know I'm not the only one who's been humbled by Jerry Mitchlick. So
no.
I'm in a pretty big group.
Yeah. You're in the majority for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the great thing about training like that is that, when you get to the match and you're looking at, like, say, a spinner at 100 yards, like, oh, I shot this at like 150 yards in practice. And, you have the confidence that, you can flip that thing or, knock down the Colt speed plates or whatever it is. And then that, like, yeah, I got this.
Right. Yeah, and that's you hit the nail on the head. You walk up there, you're confident, and as you always perform better when you're confident in what you're doing, and you look at that stage and you're like, okay, this is going to go well for me. So
yeah. Well, Nathan, what match do you have coming up you're looking forward to?
Well, there's a couple of them. I unfortunately won't be shooting Rocky Mountain, but I'll see you at Gen 3 Gun.
Nice.
And so
it's a great match.
I love that match. Ton of fun. Chad Francis is awesome. And then I'll be going to Fort Benning again, which is one you need to shoot, Dave.
I do. I absolutely do.
Great match, of course I have to shoot it, because Tyler's there and it's my chance to get down there. So
gotta go support.
Yeah,
support.
Oh yeah,
little bro.
It's that, but it's more the I'm going to go visit Tyler and shoot a match. Then but it's a great match. It's a ton of fun. But before that, I'm trying something new. I'm shooting that Lucas Oil PCC Championship or World Champion. I don't know what they call it. World Championship.
I think it is.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing that ranch, that Lucas Oil ranch.
Yeah.
So it'll be a ton of fun traveling down with a great group of guys from Minnesota here, and we're doing that VRBO or Airbnb thing, and how much fun that is. So
yeah, that's the way to go, man.
Yeah.
That's what all the good stories come out of those.
Yeah, oh man, no kidding. But you've got the Wyoming Governor's match, right?
Yeah, Wyoming Governor's match, Rocky Mountain 3-gun on consecutive weekends here, and then I'm going to take a vacation for a week, kind of disappear off the grid, and go visit some family. So that'll be a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Rocky Mountain NRA Whittington Center is pretty off the grid. It's hard to get more off the grid than that.
I know. I might just stay there. That would work out pretty well.
Oh man, what a beautiful facility, right?
Yeah, place is incredible. If you're listening to this and you've never been to the NRA Whittington Center for whatever reason, definitely go check it out. They've got like something for everyone, and it's a shooter's bucket list item.
Yes, absolutely. Are you gonna shoot the buffalo?
Oh heck yeah!
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so much fun. I shot it with my dad's 6.5 Creedmoor last year when we went down there. And we timed it out. It was 4.5 seconds from the report of the rifle to the report of the hit on the steel.
No kidding.
Yeah. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. What is it, like 1,147 yards? Something like that?
11 something, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty incredible, and it's one of those unique opportunities you got to take advantage of.
Got to go shoot the buffalo at Whittington.
Yeah. And Nathan, if you can look back to the the early days when you're calling up Dad and you're calling up Tyler and trying to figure out this 3-gun thing, what can you look at as like one piece of advice that was one of the best you've received?
Sure. There's a couple of them, and one of them I actually got before I ever shot 3-gun, and it was from my head football coach in college, and he said something that stuck with me, and he used to say it all the time, but he always said, in college, game day Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he always used to say, you don't win the game on Saturday, you win it Monday through Friday. And that one stuck with me, right? Preparation is everything. And to that point, I got another one from my dad, and that is practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And so you need to be careful, right? There's a lot of people, and you and I both know a lot of people that go out and shoot a lot of rounds, but the progress isn't quite there. But you look at someone like Josh Fralick, whose progress has been astronomical, and it's because it's not because he's practicing, it's because he's practicing correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it incorrectly, so every time you do a repetition, when I help instruct from the Minnesota 3-gun group, it's one of the things that I say. Every time you do a repetition, you are creating basically muscle memory, right? And so it counts. Every repetition counts. You got to determine whether or not it's going to count for you or against you, but it's going to count. And so if you're doing it improperly, you're creating what we call training scars, right? Everybody knows that term. And so now you've got to train properly extra times to get rid of the training scar and then to get the proper technique, right?
Right.
To make that into your subconscious. And so what I learned from my dad is that practice makes permanent. Do it right. So, and that's something, talking with Tyler and those guys, the difference between the general 3-gunner and the AMU is that we train till we get it right. They train till they can't get it wrong. Right. And so, as long as you're doing it right and making those reps count for you, practice does make perfect. But if you're doing it wrong, you might be, you're going to have a lot of work ahead of you. So
just creating more bad habits.
Yep. So make sure you're doing it right. Right.
Yeah. So one of the, the great things is seeking out instruction to help you get that way. You teach with the Minnesota 3-gun group. So you probably get access to like a lot of new people that are in the coming into the sport, enthusiastic, want to learn. What are some like common things that you see people doing wrong that are easy fixes for them?
Yeah. So the first thing is with the shotgun. That's the one that really stands out. And first of all, for whatever reason, they always have me instructing shotgun. and and so one of the things is, I hear it all the time, and you probably have too. My shotgun hits high. My shotgun shoots high, right?
Yep.
All the time. Well, there's a reason for that. You're peeking, right?
Yep.
Everybody, there's reasons. They want to see the target fall over because most of the targets that we shoot with a shotgun are reactive, right? And they want to see it. Who doesn't? I love watching steel fall and plates break. It's awesome.
Heck yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I love the shotgun, smashing things. But but when you peek, so a lot of shotguns, less so now, don't have a rear sight. And so the rear sight on your shotgun is your eye. And what happens when you raise the rear sight? You shoot high.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they peek, they lift their rear sight up, they shoot over the top of the target. And then the second thing happens, and that's the recoil part of it. Especially smaller statured people shooting a 12 gauge, and it's, you marry your cheek to that buttstock, and you either have it push your face or punch your face.
Mm-hmm.
Which one's going to be worse, right?
I've done both.
Right. And so have I, lessons normally learned by failure, right?
Pretty quick.
That's another thing, and I'll get to in a second. But so that's one of the things that I see a lot is people, the discipline with the shotgun is something that takes time and takes repetition. But if you do it correctly, you definitely have a leg up. And then another thing, of course, is loading that shotgun is a big thing. But what I'm seeing more and more with new shooters is they come in, they already have their gear, they're already quad loading. I was like, what? Oh, YouTube.
Yeah.
I get it. Computer, internet, it's awesome. Right? I mean, none of that's, and it's not that it wasn't available back then, but it just wasn't as prominent as it is now.
Yeah. When I started, I bought a DVD from Noveski to learn.
I was just gonna say, I bet I know which one it is.
Yep.
Yep. And so, and it's great. We are living in an information age, and something I would caution people against though is that on the forums there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen. So I've had many people PM, send me a private message asking questions because they wanted to ask me, or and I've heard this from many shooters that they've had people, just ask them, and that's great. And the great thing about this sport is we all are very accessible. New shooters, veteran shooters. I can't tell you how many times I have contacted Patrick Kelly and Kurt Miller and Ken Anderson, all these guys for advice. So. But another thing is, of course, the pistol. The pistol tends to be the make or break, right, for all new shooters.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's so, this is a rabbit hole we could go down with the pistol, right? But it basically just comes down to line your sights up on the target, press the trigger without disturbing that sight picture. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful with your pistol. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
But that's basically what I've seen as far as newer shooters, some of the issues that they might have. But I think that as the sport has grown, we've got the newer shooters coming in are, one, they're hungry to learn. They want to win, of course, right away. That's humbling. But I would say that today's 50% shooter would beat the 50% shooter from 5 years ago.
I think you're absolutely right. Like, the competition has definitely gotten stiffer.
Yes.
And like you said, I think people come in with a better frame of reference to their first match than I did, for sure.
Right. And the learning curve has been almost erased.
Yeah. With quad loading and dual loading.
Yeah. But I think it has a lot to do with the availability of information as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many of these newer shooters coming in, who've shot for 2-3 years and they're already up at the top, and junior shooters doing it. And it's great to see. that, and it's great for new shooters coming in to see, the sophomores and juniors, right? The guys who are in their second and third years being competitive, because it's, I can do that, and I think that, I'll be honest with you, Dave, I think your show has had a lot to do with that too, because you put out, you bring people on, you put out a lot of good information. It's very accessible. People they listen to the show. Like I told you, I'll listen to it on my commute or when I'm on the treadmill or whatever. And it's an opportunity to learn while you're doing other things, and they're constantly taking in that information, and it definitely feeds the obsession. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's great to hear, man. Thank you very much for that compliment.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's the goal of the show. Why I started in the first place, to flatten that curve, and plus I wanted to learn myself. And this is a good way of tricking people into telling me all their secrets.
Yeah, definitely. But I like I said, it's one of those things that the newer shooter coming in is I learn a lot from them, believe it or not, and I'm never afraid to pick anybody's brain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's one thing that I've learned quite a bit as well. When I was a lot younger, I always got upset with, in business or in other areas like organizations where it's like they wouldn't listen to the young people or the new people coming in because they thought they knew better. And I found myself doing that a lot in certain areas of my life as well. But Three Gun, when you stop and you listen to like the new people, like, well, why wouldn't you just do it this way? And then you have to explain like this is why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. Causes you to one, reevaluate your position and if it's actually the correct position to have, and then two, take a look at it from a fresh set of eyes that don't have all the indoctrination and the, like you said, the training scars and the dogma that we sometimes have with our passion sports.
Yeah, I agree, and I've learned so much. Yeah, it's funny you say that because there's a guy who's local to me. Actually, a good friend of mine lets me shoot on his range a lot at his house. Jim Scully is his name, and he's a fairly new shooter, but he's left-handed. And he asked me one time how I'm going to shoot a stage, and I told him I was going to do this. He's like, well, how would you do it if you were left-handed? So I go through it, and I'm like, that's faster. I'm going to do it that way.
Oh, no kidding.
So yeah, I looked at it from a different perspective, right? Looked at it from a left-hander's perspective, and I'm like, that is the fastest way to do this, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, regardless.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things, like I said, you can learn from anybody. So.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing to do, is to look at it from that fresh perspective. So yep. I guess in the context that you're talking about there of looking at it from a left-hander's perspective gives you a framework to start with rather than just saying like, hey, look at this from a different perspective, Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just a blank canvas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Paint me a picture.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. No.
I know. Yeah. Like a lot of times when I'm working with a company or a match or something like that, and, and helping out with the things that the Three Gun Show does, people will say, do your thing. It's like, well, my thing can be a lot of different things. Which thing are you referring to?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go find some cookies in a nice shady place. So,
because that's my thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, Nathan. Well, I got two last questions for you here before we part ways, and you can get on with the rest of your day. Where do you see the sport of Three Gun headed?
Where do I see it headed? What I see is kind of like what we were just talking about. In a lot of ways, I think it parallels MMA. All right. Mm-hmm. By that I mean, if you look back at the first UFCs, and I don't know if you're familiar, but like Royce Gracie, right? Royce Gracie used to win these matches, smaller guy than everybody he fought, but he won because he was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and nobody knew how to defend against the crazy stuff he was doing, right?
Right.
Flash forward to George St. Pierre now, right? Or anybody who fights MMA now. If you want to be competitive, you have to be a top-level Muay Thai boxer, wrestler, and a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You have to be well-rounded, right? And that's the only way you can win. And I think it's the same way in 3-gun. I think gone are the days where you could say, well, I'm going to use my shotgun here because I'm really good with my shotgun and my pistol's not so strong. And I'm going to be competitive that way when running your pistol is clearly faster. Right.
Right.
And vice versa. Right. If you need to, come across a stage where you need to use your shotgun, or I think the matches now, are set up where you need to be good at everything you do, right? You might not have to be the best, but you need to be good, and you need to be consistently good. For me, the shotgun is something that's my strongest tool. But if I look at a stage and I'm like, man, it'd be so much faster to shoot all this stuff with a pistol, that's what I'm going to do, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense because I like my shotgun more, or I might be a little bit better with it. If it's still going to be slower, I'm not going to do that. And I think that the level of the average shooter has raised in the sport, and thus it has raised everybody, right? The whole sport has gone up. And not only that, but the advancements in technology. And by that, I mean, the introduction of the 12-round tube and the quad load changed the sport, right?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, how many targets are we shooting now? You can we shoot so many more rounds in a match now than we did 5-6 years ago, because of the advent of that technology. And as long as that stuff keeps happening, I think that which I think is a good thing, right? Some of the all shotgun stages can get a little bit long. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But I think it's so great because you go to a match to shoot, and all of this stuff, the average shooter becoming a better shooter than they were in the past because of the internet, because of the availability of matches, right? I mean, how many more matches are we shooting now? The availability of like this podcast and shooters in your area, how many shooters are going and shooting majors all around the country and taking that flavor and bringing it back. So the regionality is starting to blur, right?
Yeah.
Like you had mentioned that, up in Minnesota, we're shotgunners, and out west, they're riflemen, and down south, they're pistoleros, and Rio Salado is a whole nother mecca, right? But you look and you go to a major match, and people from all over the country are right there, right? They're all very competitive with each other. So I think that as the sport has grown, as technology has grown, as more and more people are putting in, they're giving their advice, their skills to the sport. I think that it has allowed us to all enjoy higher level of competition. And so I see it growing. I see the sport still growing. And I see with PCC coming in with the new UML system, I think that there's going to be people coming from USPSA, more people coming from USPSA over. And then also growing into the PRS, which is growing now, right?
Yep.
People are going to start going that direction, because you're wearing a Vortex shirt right now, right? You got Vortex has the Huey and the Spitfire AR, and they also has the Razor 4.5 to 27.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
The Vortex is winning Precision Rifle Series matches and winning, TAC Limited. So, there's opportunities across the board for people to come out and shoot, and NRL 22, so I see all of that feeding into 3-gun, because let's face it, we use the most guns and it's the most fun.
Yeah.
Right? I just had that conversation at the match I shot this last weekend. Like, this is great, but could you imagine how much fun it'd be if we added 2 guns to it?
What if there was a shotgun here? That would be awesome.
Right. Where am I? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So.
that's one of the things I really enjoy about the shooting sports in general is we're at like a really interesting time where, let's be honest, the pistol's difficult to shoot, right? The rifle is an easier platform to shoot. Shotgun for the most part is an easier platform to shoot. Loading is the barrier, but quad loading has kind of flattened that out. So, in years past, it's been USPSA has only been a pistol sport. So PCC gives people the chance to feel like a superhero the first time out, rather than just like, man, I really suck. I couldn't hit a popper to save my life. My Glock shoots low on the left, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
And with precision rifle, with like you and I were talking about with Street Lock, it's not so helpful for when you got one dot, but when you have a whole reticle, there's amazing things that you can do getting some data from your cartridge and your rifle and scope setup, and then putting all that into a computer program. And so it's really flattened the curve and made it so you don't have to have a degree in physics to make it fun. So when you look at all those things happening at the same time, like we're in a really good time to be in competitive shooting or to have an interest in competitive shooting.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that as such, I think there's a bit of a responsibility on us as three gunners to help to continue that growth, right? Whether it's bringing a new shooter to the range or to a match, or just bringing them to the range and saying, hey, check out my sweet RCI M2.
Yeah.
Go ahead and let it run, or even just being that person at the match that people can go to and they're like, man, these people are great, So I think in so many ways our community has so much to offer anybody coming in, and it's such an inclusive. It's very strange because it's on the surface it seems exclusive, right? Because you come walking up and everybody's joking around, bantering with each other, but you come walking up and the circle opens up and they allow you to come in and join in, right? It's a very inclusive group, and it's one that it almost seems like there should be an entry fee, right? Because for me anyway, I'm so honored to be considered a part of that group. But at the same time, everybody is so humble and kind and welcoming that they couldn't be further from the truth, right?
Yeah.
That it is not exclusive at all.
Yeah, and I figured it out at SHOT Show 2016. It was the first SHOT Show I went to. Just I think it was like 8 months after starting the show, the podcast, and I realized like these are my people. Like I've been searching for this group, this crew for a long, long time, and three gunners and competitive shooters in general, people in the firearms industry are some of the best people on the planet.
Yes, absolutely. Could not agree more. Is that the one that you did the whole like bracketed shotgun versus shotgun?
The best 3-gun shotgun. I still get comments on YouTube on that. Hating comments on YouTube, by the way, and on the blog.
Well,
and
who won that one again? I can't remember.
That was the FNSLP.
Oh yeah, you were wrong.
I don't know, man. The SLP is pretty slick. Well, it's funny though, because I think there was like 3 coin tosses in that episode, and because it was a lot. We're basically just talking about shotgun choice, and I mentioned to Mark Roth about how people seem to treat it like it's their girlfriend, and when they buy one and then defend it to the end, no matter what she does. But right?
That's exactly how it is. Yeah. You're right.
I stole that one from my buddy who's works on Jeeps. He was talking about the difference between Jeeps and Toyotas, and he said that in that context. But it's perfect for shotguns. And then the FN won 3 coin tosses in that episode that caused it to go to the win. So people always give us a hard time for I don't know if Mark gets any flack, but give me a hard time for declaring a winner on that. But it's like, did you listen?
Well, the thing is that, like you said, that FN's a great shotgun, and actually they all have something to offer everybody.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, the one that you're running now wasn't even on the board.
Yeah, it was still in Italy. It wasn't even in the U.S. at the time. Yeah, the Breda.
So and that another thing, as the sport grows, look at all the options that are out there for people now.
Oh yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this the other day. It's a really there are far and away more choices in a good AR-15 barrel than you can possibly put on a spreadsheet, unless you're Jake. And
I guarantee you he has one.
Yeah, exactly. and then choose from. I mean, it's very difficult to make a bad decision if you're building an AR-15 right now. You can still do it, but it's hard.
And whatever you got, bring it and let's shoot a match.
Exactly. Have a good time, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Yes, exactly.
All right, man. Well, I got one last question for you, but we just got one from the YouTubers here, and wanted to throw it your way before I finish this out. So first of all, Joe Frechette says, "I need to hit your next class." Yes, you do, Joe.
Joe's a great guy.
Good,
Joe.
good. And then Nathan Mahoney, which is affectionately known as Nat Han Mahoney around the Three Gun Show world. He says, was it an advantage having a group like the Minnesota Three Gun Group for you early on in the game?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it was. However, it was an advantage to me, but I don't know that groups of people like that don't exist around the country. Right.
Right.
You would know better than I as you've traveled around and been a part of all these other communities.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the group dynamic is probably pretty transferable across the country. That being said, the Minnesota Three Gun Group's made up with some great people.
Yeah, and I've definitely since you asked, I've definitely seen that in a lot of other areas. They usually don't have like a name. They're more informal than Minnesota Three Gun Group is. But if you can find a crew that is decent or a good crew and people that like to shoot, like to travel for matches, go find a way to be useful to that crew and see if you can provide some value to them in exchange for what they can teach you, because it will put you miles ahead.
I'm glad you said that, because that's another piece of advice, right? You want to endear yourself to the Three Gun community? Work. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I tell you what, I would love to squad with a squad full of guys who are mediocre shooters that reset and have fun and all. Like that's what it's about, right? So you want to endear yourself to the community, be that first guy downrange to reset.
Absolutely. That's the best way to do it. Stay late, help tear down, come in early, help set up on your club matches and stuff like that.
And I'll say this, Nathan Mahoney, he's one of those guys. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Superstar. All right, Nathan. So last question here. Final thought or piece of advice, something the audience can take away. And unfortunately, we already used endearing yourself to the Three Gun community.
Yeah. Again, I would say match your expectations to your training. A lot of people, you mentioned it when you first got started, that, and I was the same way, that my expectations were outcome based, right? And there's a lot of things that go into that are outside of your control, right? You're shooting against Daniel Horner. You can't control how good he is, right? So if you're shooting that match and my goal is to win this match, well, you might not achieve that goal. So make it more, base your goals more upon where you're at in your training, and focus on doing what you can do to set yourself up for success. And I think that comes into stage planning. It comes into what you're doing in preparation for the match, and focusing on enjoying yourself and having fun, and the rest will come. And if you can take classes, if you have those resources available, take those classes. They'll set you ahead.
Yeah, it really cuts off that learning curve, flattens it out quite a bit.
Definitely.
Yeah, you can learn from all Nathan's mistakes instead of making them on your own.
Exactly. Hey, I will say this. I think that a lot of success in Three Gun is a product of failure.
It's true. It's true. You got a quick example you can tell us about?
Let's see. Yeah, I would say that one of those would be the shot. I'm gonna fall back on the shotgun again.
Sure.
But when I first learned to quad load, it was my dad that kind of taught me, and I took it from there. And he had gotten one of the original TACCOM quad loads, I think is what Tim was calling them. And he had tried it out, and he had told me the par times he was running in his house. And I was doing the traditional weekend loading. I'm sure you did that.
Yep.
And I'm like, nope. He's giving me a time. I was able to get 8 rounds in the gun, shoulder to shoulder, in about 5 seconds. Right. Now I was pretty happy with that. And he's like, yeah, I can do 8 rounds in about 4.5 seconds. I'm like, no, you can't. Not possible. There's no way. So finally I'm like, well, get down here. He lives about 20 minutes north of me. I'm like, get down here and show me. And so he comes down and he sets up the power time. Beep, we take off. And I'd inserted the first 4 rounds, was putting the 5th one in, and he's already back on his shoulder. And I'm like, Dad, no, do it again. And I'm just watching this. And it was the next day I called Tim. I'm like, where do I order these from? I need them. And so I think that in a lot of ways, the failure process can be a tough one, but it's necessary, right? I mean, how many times have you gone to the range and been trying to accomplish something, and you keep failing? You finally find the key, right? The key. And for whatever reason, you have that aha moment, right? And that's what my dad calls them, aha moments.
Yep.
And I think those are the product of failure.
Yeah. And, to build upon that, for me, like, I've had a lot of failures during matches where, for example, like I had a streak where I was drilling a hole, right below a target at like 370 yards, 420 yards, no problem. 330 yards, no problem. 370 yards, drilling that hole right below the target. So that, caused you to, all right, we got a problem here we got to fix. So let's take that into the practice session. So that was in fact a failure, but then, you go work it out in the dojo, and you figure that out and come out a stronger person from it.
Right. And I guess a better example of failure would be, like I talked about, in the mindset, right? How I approach matches now as opposed to how I did back then. That's a direct product of failure, right? I mean, had that worked for me back then, I wouldn't shoot the way that I shoot now. So, there's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, Nathan, we're gonna wrap this one. I think we should do a part 2 sometime, because I know there's a lot more in your story, and you got a ton to offer.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And I really appreciate you being a part of the 3-Gun Show here, man. This was great. Thanks for taking the time out of your Tuesday to sit here and chat with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Hey, before you take off, make sure to head on over to 3gunshow.com/episode 211 for links to things that we talked about in the interview, including a video replay of Nathan and I recording the interview live on YouTube. This podcast is brought to you by Armalite, the original. Armalite rifles put the AR in AR-15. The rifles themselves come with 1-8 twist barrels, match barrels, 18-inch or 13.5-inch with a 15-inch or 12.5-inch handguard, Timney trigger, Luth AR stock, adjustable gas system, tunable comp, a patented tunable comp. This thing's ready to go right out of the box for a 3-gun with no additional modifications other than putting on a nice optic. I myself use a Vortex Viper PST 1-6 when I'm shooting TAC Ops, or their Spitfire when I'm shooting limited. Check them out at armalite.com. Quick reminder that if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcast content, so you will always get the very latest. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.
If you're still listening to this now, you are a super fan, and I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning into the podcast this week and each week. Your downloads and your ears are greatly appreciated. Now I'm going to share something very personal here, some sad news in the Three Gun Show world. As I record this today, I just left the funeral where we buried my stepdad, Lyle Anderson. And when I was driving back to the office here, I was thinking about all of the great times that we had together and how so many of those great times involved firearms. My stepdad came into my life when I was a little guy, like 9 or 10 or something like that. And he was really into the outdoors, hunting, fishing, exploring, things of that nature. He and my mom gave me my first gun on my 13th birthday after I took a hunter safety. I remember that he wanted me to get a single shot bolt action 22 like he had when he was a boy. So I would learn marksmanship. And he would always tell me stories about roaming around the canyons of Cortez when he was growing up and shooting anything that moved, which I don't know if you're allowed to do anymore, but allegedly he did that. But I wanted the Ruger 1022 because it had the 10-round rotary mag, and it was a semi-auto. I promised him that I would learn marksmanship, but we both knew that I just wanted to do mag dumps. So they did get me that 1022, and I still have it, and I still shoot it like 25 years later. The first real caliber rifle that I shot was his 30-06 that we took out to sight in for deer season. Under recoil, the scope hit my hat bill and knocked it off my head and bruised my forehead. He thought that was pretty funny. And a few days later, I did too. And he told that story for years. He was so excited when I bought my first shotgun because now I could go pheasant hunting with him. And I did. He was supportive when I started shooting matches, even though it interfered with hunting. He followed the Three Gun Show, and he would always ask me if I had gotten a USPSA classification yet, which I haven't, but I think I might have to do that now. I could tell you several hundred other stories of memories that we made together. Life and families are not easy. And when you throw in the dynamic of a divorce, step parents, step siblings, things like that, they just get more complicated. But he was the leader of our family, and he gave us a lot, gave us great purpose. He taught me so many things that I use every day. He's a great man that had an incredible influence on my life. Competitive shooting, hunting, and just firearms enjoyment in general are a very social activity. It's rooted in traditions that are deep in our DNA to protect and provide for our tribe. In more modern traditions, they're a rite of passage for many young men and women, and something that is incredibly valuable in our insulated modern lifestyle. You know, it was everyone has a similar story, I'm sure, but it's like, you're old enough now. Get in the truck, come with us, and we'll teach you everything we know, one moment at a time. Nothing is permanent in life. Even the pillars of your childhood eventually crumble. Take the time to enjoy every moment that you have with those around you. Take a family member to a match, to the range, or out in the forest and shoot some stuff. Talk to each other. Have fun. Make some memories. Lyle, thank you for everything you did for me. I'll miss you, man.